Like sitting in a jungle, like literally taking notes. Pharmaceutical company, come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
We know what they're doing.
I didn't think that Facebook would be interested in brain-computer interface.
But what actually made it viral?
I think because it's ethically questionable. Yo, I make this cure for cancer. Now you all know. If someone else
Just spread it, just throw it around.
who's going to pay for your 3D printers?
You know I love it.
Everything is gray, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, it is so great. And
That,
yeah.
my friend, is your empathy.
Welcome to an episode on the Estelle Ingenuity podcast. I'm Stephen Estelle, engineer, CEO, and founder of Estelle Ingenuity. In our episodes, we dive into different experiences from people who specialize in technology, entrepreneurship, and other necessary elements that will help you reach your full potential in these fields. We focus in on innovative devices that will be changing our society, stories from entrepreneurs and how they maneuver through the business landscape, and how these new technologies are being used in businesses to bring value to the world. From these stories, if you are inspired to develop your own inventions and prototypes, and you want to see your innovative ideas flourish, reach out to us at estelleingenuity.com for your prototyping needs so together we can begin creating the new devices of the future. With that being said, enjoy the show, follow and subscribe to Estelle Ingenuity Podcast, and relish the wisdom from the topic you hear today. All right, so today on this podcast, we have my colleague here, Finda, and on this episode, we want to go over some interesting stuff talking about research and industry and how we're going to potentially incorporate devices and innovations from the laboratory into the business field. And it's actually quite interesting how you might have some interesting devices that look promising, but actually end up not being as promising as you thought they were once they get into the public eye. So to begin with, Finda, would you like to give a nice introduction of who you are and what you like and things like that?
Hello, thank you for having me.
Nice.
And yeah, my name is Finda. I am from Indonesia.
Mm-hmm.
What am I? I would say I'm a biomedical engineer.
Nice. I always love my BMEs.
Exactly, I'm a biomedical engineer. Specifically, I would call myself like an EG scientist or a BCI scientist, brain computer interface scientist.
Okay.
So my background is in biology.
Mm-hmm.
Started from studying animal behavior.
Okay.
So like sitting in a jungle, like literally taking notes of how the birds are doing, how the like deers are doing.
The fact that you could actually do that actually sounds pretty cool. Sit in the jungle.
Well, I mean, it was not a job.
Take notes.
It was just cool. It was
that's
cool.
actually pretty legit.
It was very nice, especially if you studied biology in Indonesia with the biodiversity, and
that would be a nice place.
It was a very memorable part. And then from there, one thing led to another. So in Indonesia, when you finish the degree, bachelor degrees, you have to perform like a small research, really.
Yeah.
And that small research happened to be a neurotechnology research, I would say, investigating something called mu rhythm in human brain.
Okay.
Using like an EEG headset or like a mobile EEG headset.
Okay.
So yeah, that's how from a biologist studying biology, sitting in a jungle, taking notes of how many times the deer like resting, eating, grooming, to working around neurotechnology, really.
Okay. That's actually interesting to go from working in a jungle to working on like neurotech and human brains. That's actually an interesting transition.
Never crossed my young minds at the time.
Yeah.
That I will end up doing something like this, something that is very interdisciplinary. So, and yeah, I was studying biomedical engineering, and Yeah, that's my interest, perhaps, like neurotechnology.
Solid. Okay, so then let's then go into the topic and the idea. So I first want to just ask you, in your opinion, let's say we have some researchers who are working on this really cool research topic and they're trying to make this new device and everything looks great. The research is showing amazing results and they're getting really good publications. And then they're like, all right, let's patent this idea and let's now take it from research to industry. And then they take this device to industry and then it performs poorly or something. It just doesn't perform how they expected. So why do you think that happens?
Well, it's too simple to ask what do you think that happened, in that scenario. Because I believe it's a very, like, research and development itself is a very complicated process. And as you said, say this team of researchers in the academia or whatever environment, until they run an experiment, designing something, getting a result, analyzing, publishing, it's a long way.
Yeah.
And then when they said, when they found that the result is promising, then the idea of having a patent over the product and selling it to the general public, it's a very complicated process, and the variable is like a lot of variables.
Right.
But having experience in both academia and just very briefly in industry for a couple of years, the similarities, in my opinion, is the importance of empathy.
Empathy.
When you're creating, when you're innovating.
Interesting. I like that.
The empathy for your end user.
So you need to be creating the device with the end user in mind, more so for industry, while in research it's more so about science?
In both.
Okay.
This is the similarity that I see, like if the scientist creates, or not creates, designing the research in the spirit of empathy, of helping their end users, the benefiting end users, and the industry producing the device, selling the device, in the spirit of, like, truly spirit of. I mean, this is how you call it. I mean, in the real world, people gotta eat, right?
You gotta eat.
You need money. It's let's be realistic.
Could be out here, working for free.
Exactly. Nobody needs, like, there's no such thing as free lunch.
Right.
So I feel like I understand that you need to make profits, you need fundings, you need you need the material stuff. However, the motor, I believe, should involve empathy.
Okay.
Because I think I'm saying this coming from my background as an Indonesian.
Yeah.
Like, it's a country with, it's a great place for me. I mean, I like it. Maybe people have different ideas about this country, but I like it. I understand that the country is still, developing, and we have our own, like, the good sides and the bad sides, and there are still problems that need to be solved. And having like disease, for example, or seeing someone with
like amputation,
exactly, disabilities, and not getting the right facilities, for example. That's it's I see that quite often when I was there.
Okay.
So that's the reason why when designing something you need empathy, because have you met your user? If I can share a little bit before like a couple of years ago when I started working with this startup company. They are trying to create something that helps cancer diagnosis through image processing, really. And I was like, oh, cool. It's a job. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Until I actually talked to a cancer patient. Until I finally talked to a medical doctor in a remote island in East Indonesia.
And then what was that? How was the results of those conversations?
It's like, so just to add context, Indonesia is the largest archipelagic country in the world.
Okay.
Number 4 in largest population.
Okay.
However, the distribution of medical related facilities and practitioners are not equal.
You would have you need to, like, for every island.
Exactly.
I can see the difficulty on that.
Yeah.
Sheesh. Okay.
Yeah. It's like 16,000 of islands.
Really?
Yeah. It's if you fly from the western 16,000. Yeah. I think it depends on the stats.
But still, I mean,
it's definitely more than. It's definitely more than the thousands of islands.
Yeah, that's a lot of islands.
It's a lot of islands. And if you want to fly from the western point to the eastern point, like in the same country, probably like the States, it takes forever to fly from. Same.
So, I'm interested about this empathy, like, because I feel like you bring up a very good point where a lot of inventors, innovators, and business entrepreneurs, they're making a device, making an app, software, or hardware. And I think that actually is a big issue where they don't take the end consumer's empathy and they don't empathize with the person they're trying to help at the end of the day. And then they end up making I don't want to say a useless device, but a useful device that nobody finds impactful on their life. Yeah. So I've always learned that when you're trying to innovate something, you need to go into... I guess you need to go into the field, talk to the consumers and kind of get their take on things and like ultimately just ask them, like, what do you want? And I mean, a lot of times people don't know what they want. Yeah. So you have to find all these workarounds.
You try to, how you call it in English? Be in their shoes?
Be in their shoes. Yeah,
be in their shoes.
So let me ask you this then. So, looking at researchers versus entrepreneurs and trying to empathize with your potential end user of your results, do you feel like entrepreneurs and researchers have a different approach? Just based off their background? One maybe is a science major, one is maybe trying to make money and grow their business.
Oh, well, I wouldn't. Well, first of all, we're not trying to create this dichotomy to make people fight over, like team science, team academia, team industry. Yes, like context here, like a disclaimer. When it comes to background nowadays, no, people in industry have PhD degrees. They shift. You will find more PhD graduates in industry nowadays, or PhD graduates starting their own company. Also quite common these days. Yeah. What different approach? Maybe, again, I can only speak based on experience. Perhaps. Yeah. So the pressure is different. The pressure in academia is different, and the pressure in industry is different. So, at least in academia, I always have to be ready with answering questions, something that I call 5 W's, 1 H. What, where, when,
how?
Okay. I have to prepare. I have to go to, I don't know, like presentation, any kind of communication, written or spoken. I have to be ready with those. But in industry,
Makes sense.
yeah, like everything, they will questions everything.
That makes sense.
But in industry, it is more like focus, like a bullseye. Moment, you know what I mean? Like,
I get you.
well, I don't care where this comes from for now, but does it work? Yeah. And also,
I get that, yeah.
the room, as a scientist again, like science education is always teach you about trial and error, and then how many times the past scientists failed and finally succeed. But in reality, at least in industry, if you can get if you can get success and trial and success, that will be great.
In industry?
Yeah. So that's the aim, like trial and success, not trial and error.
Right.
At least that's, again, I'm not trying to generalize this.
Right.
But that's my experience.
But now, doesn't it make sense that, like, when you work in an industry setting that, not all the time, but ultimately isn't like the financial gain, like the incentive, or else you're just out of business?
Back to the pressure. I mentioned pressure at the beginning. Pressure is different.
So the pressure for industry is we need to make money.
We need to make money. We need to stay afloat.
Pressure for research.
For research, it depends. Probably I know better in research, at least. Depends on what is your level. Like if you're in a position that if I lose funding now, that's it for me. It's also the case like that.
They also
it depends on the case. Also, competitions. You think researchers not competing? They're competing. Like if in the middle of my study someone else published first, and then my study will lose its novelty. So that's similar, like industry, right? If competitors create a new things like better than us, so in that both are highly competitive. Both are trying to stay afloat.
Yeah.
But I think and the end goal, I believe, is the same, to create a better life for everyone, for the end users, right? But
it's like same goal but different means of going about it.
Or I think so. I think like the just like different platform in the train stations. Go like one route might go like up and down, the other will go like underground, upper ground, whatever. But also another thing that I forgot to mention is that in academia, especially in an institution that is like 700 years old, is there any? I think there are
somewhere.
Like big institutions. I don't think they have like the stake is not as high if you want to compare it with like a startup company that just or a medium-sized company that's trying to stay afloat. The pressure is different
because they have more. I guess they just have a better resume.
Well, yes, and if these companies fail, companies will be gone forever, whereas university will still there. Especially if this university is like super old, super famous. So like, the stake is different. I guess it really depends on how you, the angle you're looking.
Yeah. But let's say then, instead of the research facility, comparing like a lab in that facility versus a startup. Like, wouldn't you say then those are both kind of the same, because the lab wants to keep their position in the facility, they need to produce some kind of research outcome, while a small startup, similarly, maybe they have some investors who are like, all right, we need to see.
And the lab, I think you need to specify the lab again, like new lab trying to establish itself, because if it's like an old lab with past graduates, it's massive library of publications in the past. They'll get by. I mean, they're not gonna get hurt too much, I believe. However, if you're basically, whichever you are, if you are in the position where you try to establish something and stakes both are high, always high. So yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't compare it like apple to apple, because
I get you.
You know what I mean, right? It really depends on how you would see it. And sometimes in biomedical engineering, the players are not always apple to apple.
What do you mean exactly?
The players in the industry, by industry, not the industry like companies, but in the
like the whole
community.
Okay.
Sometimes it's not always apple to apple.
So what? Explain on that, like exactly. Because I think I believe I get it, but just clarification.
Example, like a very specific, a company that is currently, let's just use Facebook. So I started by brain-computer interface study. I studied brain-computer interface for the first time. 2011. Okay, 2011. At the time, I didn't think that. Well, I only knew Facebook is to tag pictures with your friends,
Yeah,
it's
the good
fun.
old days.
Yeah, I didn't think that Facebook would be interested in brain-computer interface to begin with.
True.
Yeah,
True.
And then 10 years later, I started to see job opening for BCA scientists to work at Facebook.
Huh.
You see here.
Yeah. Interesting.
And and then the other player, now you have Facebook doing that. And the other player are labs who just recently established themselves, because BCI is not like something brand new. But not every university have BCI labs. And also the classification of BCI in some university it's part of neuroscience, in some university it's part of biomedical engineering, and some university it's part of electronic engineering or physics engineering, things like that. So it's still fairly less established discipline.
Just to make sure, you said BCI was brain-computer interface?
Yes.
Okay.
Brain-computer. I'm talking about BCI labs in academia setting.
Okay, so like connecting like human brains to computers.
Yes.
Analyzing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those like laboratory facilities probably less established compared to other like more established field.
Yeah.
Because it's fairly new, it's multidiscipline, things like that. And it depends on university. Sometimes it falls in different department, different faculty, and things like that. Versus Facebook.
Yeah, like Facebook's just, I mean, it started off as like, liking cat photos, and now it's like talking about making a new world.
Exactly.
It did transform its whole like business plan.
Exactly. But both trying to address BCI here. So that's just maybe like one example.
No, that's an interesting example.
Exactly. In some cases, they're interested in the same thing. The players are not. This is why I said the players are not apple to apple.
Right.
And also, plenty of startup companies trying to touch BCI as well, and you can't compare them with Facebook, for example.
Is it just because they're just so far behind?
And securing money is not easy.
It all comes back to the securing the bag.
Yeah, securing the money. So, it's. I think it really depends if you want to discuss this, trying to compare small or new startup versus new lab, both doing BCI, or you want to compare new lab versus Facebook, or you want to compare small startup versus super fancy universities doing BCI.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not always like pick your opponent situation.
I get you. So then let me ask you this then. Not trying to have you choose sides, but from your experiences, which one do you personally find more pleasant?
This is interesting.
So
Question.
Business, same topic, but in a business setting or in a research setting.
Personally.
Yeah.
Personally.
Let me hear.
And in the beautiful ideal world where everything just rainbows,
everything's golden.
Yeah. I like research.
Why so?
It is more, for me personally, I feel more fulfilled if I am if I'm in the situation that is, how you call it? Intellectually stimulating. At least in my, people experience can be different. Depends on the place. And at the time when I was in the industry, I wasn't in a place that I was like intellectually stimulated. And I can do the job. It's great. It's fun. Meeting new people, meeting new people with different perspectives, out of the university world. But then when it comes to fulfillment, I think I like. This is I'm totally ignoring the responsibility.
Yeah. I get it. I got
paper.
I understand. Yeah, I get it. just for fun.
The deadlines. No,
all the work and stress behind
I want to
it. I get you.
Being intellectually stimulated. Getting tons of money doing that and go to nap. That's the perfect world, obviously. But I would say
just vibing.
Because again, I'm not trying to blame industry in this case, because time is money. So why addressing 5 W's plus 1 H if you solve what you need to solve in 2 W's?
Right.
And you get money back.
Right. I mean, so which sounds efficient.
Exactly, it is efficient.
sounds nice.
I'm not disliking it, loving it. Actually, fast get my money back because I get paid because of that. Right? That's how I get paid. But maybe because also the pressure is to keep the company stay afloat because it's a startup company, like relatively new startup. So I didn't have enough time to be like a deep thinker.
I see. It's always like survivor mode.
Exactly. Yeah.
So would that be different if you were in like more of an established company then?
Maybe if there's any company interested in hiring me. The thing is,
so where you at? It's a little
like fate brought me to small companies. So
where you at?
maybe exactly because that's based on experience.
Right.
Since I'm currently in back to academia setting.
That makes sense. No, that makes sense.
And I'm grateful to be able to have this platform to nobody's here telling me stop thinking.
Right.
Stop
wondering.
Stop wondering. Yeah, exactly. Start working.
Get that money.
Chop. Yeah, exactly. Chase that money. So at least, that's how I feel.
So I feel like my take on it. So I still lack a lot of industry experience. I've only worked in a company for 2 years, part-time when I was in LA. And then I came out here to Japan, and here we are at OIS, and with all these other experiences. And like, I think, I know, so the pros and cons in both were like, one, more, like you said, we need to make revenue. We need to make something. While research, it is, I feel like, very heavily on, you know, what's new about it, you know, kind of, the process is different. That it feels less stressful, but maybe it's just because I'm more in the engineering experience more so than the research experience. Because my experiences in research institutions was, we need a device. Can you make this device? And then we implement it. Business is like, all right, use your skills to make us money.
Yeah.
And like, I guess, yeah, the expectation from business is like, all right, if you're not bringing in revenue, then you're not needed anymore.
Yeah.
And like,
pressure is different.
Yeah. I can see that. And I feel like there'll definitely be less, I mean, depending on the company, of course, but there'll be less, I guess, less at ease, I guess. Well, okay, no, I take that back. I feel like if you're not carrying your rate in research, then, you know, the research isn't getting done and you're not fitting the timeline that you need to meet the deadlines. So I do feel like it's the same on that side. So
both have time.
Yeah. So I do think that's even, looking at the two, research and industry. But I think if I had to prefer, just from my limited experience, I guess depending on what you want out of life, I am actually enjoying the institution, you know, research institutions.
Oh.
I am enjoying that.
Okay.
Because, and maybe it's just my experiences of a nice life balance, life-work balance.
Oh, yeah.
But when it comes to like industry, though, I guess it comes down to like, if you have two great leaders, you know, either if your boss is good or the manager is good, I feel like in industry, I don't know, I think it'd actually be kind of cool to make something and then to see it out in the public very quickly and, you know, not
like real.
Yeah, like somebody's buying this.
You
know, whether if you're in like aerospace, airplanes, or whatever, product development, it's like, all right, I made that. And then you can go to the store, you can like see it, like, I'm in there somewhere, you know. And like, I never experienced that, but I can imagine that would be actually very fulfilling. You know?
Actually, that's an interesting. I completely agree with the work-life balance.
Yeah.
But again, to see someone actually use your product,
that's a good feeling.
That must be a good feeling. I know.
I'm like, I explain that to people when somebody's using your device happily and proudly, and you know it works as intended. I don't know. I gotta say that's probably one of my favorite feelings, among many others. And
that, my friend, is your empathy, because you want other people to enjoy your hard work, right?
Right.
Not just getting the cash in.
That's what it's really about. Just you don't want to be tricking people. You want them to actually take your end product and actually be happy with it.
So. Especially if you're in BME, sitting down with patients is a whole, you know.
It's a lot. When I was doing my prosthetics, started off in my master's, and then now it's part of Estelle Ingenuity about my prosthetics and 3D printing. Like you mentioned, the very beginning, I had to go to like veterans hospitals and talking to amputees. There was a guy who I would meet with every month or so, and he would test my devices, and he would tell me like, you know, these are things that me and my friends would want. You know, this is why this is important to us. This is why the weight is significant because my arm is tired at the end of the day and I want to take it off. Or he would tell me like, well, sometimes I lose it. So now I have to wait another month or so and buy another one for $500, you know. And he's telling me about these day-to-day problems. And the feeling of saying like, I have a solution for you.
Yeah.
And they take it. And it's like,
called empathy. That's the empathy.
I like that. Like empathy, like underlined. I think that's an important word that entrepreneurs as well as researchers should really run with. I think that's nice. Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. I think that's good.
Especially if you want to do something in medical. Not just any consumer goods, but medical. Talk to patients. You can always read. You can always download 50 papers and never read it.
Yeah.
Story of my life. But
the life.
Once you sit with a patient, just them telling you how hard it is to brush their teeth every morning, how sometimes my wheelchair get thrown in the airplane, for example, things like that. You didn't think of, wheelchair users when they travel, even though it says fragile. In the airplane, they just like, throw things around.
Yeah, just toss it.
And exactly, and it's part of their body.
Yeah.
For them, it's part of their body. So if one thing missing, one thing's unscrewed, one thing's like loosened, it's the entire sense, like they can sense it. It can change their livelihood. It can change, their quality of life. And those things aren't cheap, right? So
that's
just fair. Stories like that. Yeah,
I like that.
It's very important, I think.
I like that. Those good points. That was the end of an episode of the Estelle Ingenuity podcast. Hope you learned something new and innovative and were left inspired to go create and invent new ideas for the betterment of society. Make sure to follow and subscribe to the Estelle Ingenuity podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube for more stories and experiences from people in the field and to hear about new up-and-coming technology. Thank you for listening and see you in the next podcast episode.